Hey guys, welcome back for part 3 of our 8-part series on our playoff previews for this upcoming NHL playoffs. And we got a big one today, guys. We got the number 2 seed Toronto Maple Leafs against the number 3 seed Tampa Bay Lightning. Quite honestly, this is going to be my favorite matchup of the first round this year. I am really stoked for this. We got 2 electric offenses, 2 solid Russian goaltenders, and then some pretty solid defensive players as well. What 2 solid teams, and I just can't wait to get into this one.
Yeah, it's incredible that these 2 teams are playing back-to-back first round. It's crazy. I mean, we saw how epic the last season was.
Oh, that was
that
great.
First year. That was went to 7 games, and Toronto almost came back and won that series. Unfortunately, Tampa just showed their experience there.
Yeah, so for you guys today, we're going to break this down. We're going to go through the offense, the defense, special teams, goaltending, and then one X factor for both these teams. And we'll start off here with the offense. And we got, oh man, these teams can score. Like, there's no trouble there. I mean, when we look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, you got Mitch Marner, 99 points, almost hit the 100 mark this year. And then Austin Matthews. We all know this guy can score it at will. Like, he's absolute superstar. Along with William Nylander and Jonathan Tavares on a second pair, like, we're talking about one of the most loaded top 6 in the entire NHL. And then when you look down this roster, I mean, we got guys who can really chip in. Guys like Noel Acciari on the 4th line. Kelly Yarncroc has had an amazing year. Guys like Michael Bunting out there can score, but they're also just really physical, chippy guys. And then the addition of Ryan O'Reilly. What a big addition that is. He can play anywhere in the lineup. You could put him on the 1st line. You could put him on the 2nd or 3rd line. This guy is really versatile and a solid two-way player. And then guys like David Kempf, really solid penalty killer, big energy player, along with Alex Kerfoot. Like, when you look top to bottom, this offense is just unreal.
Yeah, and then when you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, on the other hand, man, they got a plethora of offensive weapon as well, starting with, obviously, Nikita Kucherov with 100-some points.
3rd in the NHL again.
3rd in the NHL, and then you got Braden Point with 50 goals, who did not really play in the playoffs last year, so he's going to be my X factor coming up. But yeah, adding a 50-goal scorer, 95-point player to your team, and then you also add in Alex Killorn that has this many points, who didn't really do much in the playoffs last year. And then you got Anthony Cirelli. You have all these other players as well. Ross Colton. They added Tanner. I know Tanner Jeannot's not going to play in the playoffs, but yeah, they have a lot of offensive weapons on this team.
Yeah, Brendan Hagel really impressed me. That guy had a really killer year, bounced back after a slow
Steven
last
Stamkos.
year. I mean, you should forget Stamkos.
Yeah.
You should be slapped for getting Stamkos. I mean, I know he wasn't like a 50-goal scorer like your boy
Nick Paul,
Point over
Ross
here.
Colton.
I mean, both these teams, we're talking
lots.
1 through 12, absolutely loaded on offense. And you know what? I'll be honest. I'm going to take a cop-out here. We haven't done this yet in the videos. I call these offenses a draw.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good against each other.
I can't really pick an advantage here. I think it's a draw.
Is a pretty good. They both have a very high-end scoring against each other, which is incredible. This is going to be the best series. One of the best series in the first round. No questions asked.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too many boring 2-1 games like some other series. Islanders. But we'll see about that. Maybe I'll be wrong. And moving on to the defense here. When we look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, Kyle Dubas, he went out of his way to make sure that there was some defensemen for this team. As a matter of fact, he has 9 of them to choose from right now. So, I mean, he went out and traded Rasmus Sandin, which to a lot of Toronto fans, I'm sure, hurt a little bit because this was a former first-round pick and a guy kind of slowly coming into his own. But they got Eric Gustafsson back, and as well at the deadline, they went out to get Jake McCabe, who has been really solid defensively for this team and added a lot of grit. I mean, we already know they got Morgan Riley, who can play 25 minutes a night, really good power play quarterback, but also really solid in his own zone, along with TJ Brody, who doesn't seem to get the love, but really solid defensive defenseman lately. And then, I mean, you got probably the GOAT, Mark Giordano, this guy taking $800K contract, playing for his hometown club, and just been so good this year, blocking so many shots, great leadership he provides. I mean, they have so many options. And then adding Luke Schenn from the Vancouver Canucks at the deadline as well. I mean, we don't even know where these guys are going to officially be playing all playoffs. They could change it every game if they wanted to. They got so many options out there.
Yeah, I also like Timmy Liljegren as well.
Yeah, I mean, this guy might be the 7th defenseman. You never know at this point. So, I mean, they can do whatever they want with this.
Yeah, now we'll move on to the Tampa side of the defense. It's also a very good team defensively as well, starting with, obviously, Victor Hedman, a big boy. And then they also have Sergachev, they have Perbix. The best addition that they had for this team was not having Cal Foot on your first pairing anymore.
True.
So that would be addition by subtraction because Cal Foot was awful last year. And
He was
we
a
can all
liability.
agree with that.
He was a
The
liability.
big missing piece will be McDonough. Losing McDonough is going to be big
Massive
because
loss.
he blocked a lot of shots in the playoffs last year. But I feel like with Perbix, with how he plays, he's going to be a X factor for this team as well because we will see how he plays. He's had a good season, so I want to see how he plays in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Tampa's defense, obviously. When you got Victor Hedman and Mikhail Sergachev, who's having a career year on the same defensive core, I mean, you're going to have a solid bunch of minute eaters there. Chernak's always just, once again, really solid when he's healthy. I mean, he's just so injury-ridden this year. But, I mean, yeah, guys like Perbix coming in to try to fill in a big hole. He's done a decent job. And Ian Cole, you can always rely on Ian Cole. That guy is so serviceable, so solid. And then Zach Bogosian, underrated guy. You know, he's probably a 5th, 6th defenseman. But you know what? He puts up a pretty decent, 10, 15 minutes some nights. And, I mean, you know you're going to get good physical play out of the guy. Once again, this is such a cop-out. But, I mean, we're talking about a pretty even defensive match. If you're talking on the high end, obviously, Victor Hedman and Sergachev, better than probably anyone on Toronto. But as a core of 6, I think I might give this one to Toronto in depth.
Actually, I agree with you. I'm actually leaning towards Toronto in this one. I like TJ Brody's play this year. He's been terrific. He's actually a low-key underrated MVP for me in their defense core. He's been so steady back there. Mark Giordano with that $800K contract really helps the team.
Game changing.
Going below the cap and having a $4 million defenseman for $800K is unreal. So yeah, I mean I think my edge goes to Toronto as well for defense. There's no excuses here for Toronto.
They definitely have more pieces, if anything, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that should be interesting. Might be able to keep them fresh if they sub a guy out every second game or so and put in the 7th defenseman. Should be fun to watch.
Yeah. Now we move on for the special teams. If you look at the board right here, you look at the power play and the penalty kill. They're pretty much neck and neck together. They're pretty much together in everything.
Oh yeah.
They're two of the best in the power play, and they're together in the penalty kill as well. It just shows these teams are very good at offense and very good at defending. It's crazy.
I mean,
good teams.
It's not hard to imagine why these guys are 2nd and 3rd on the power play. I mean, you look at these units for Tampa Bay. You got Braden Point, 50 goal scorer. Stamkos scores 50 pretty often, has had 60 before. Nikita Kucherov basically gets 100 points at will when he's healthy. And then you got other Victor Hedman or Mikhail Sergachev this year, a lot of the year, who can play that point beautifully. They both have a heck of a good slap shot. They're both really good at moving the puck. And I mean, you can put in whoever you want as that 5th guy, whether it's Killorn, Hagel, Nick Paul if you want a big body guy. And then moving on to Toronto, I mean, you got that really solid 5 where you got Morgan Rielly at the point, Mitch Marner passing the puck and basically choosing where he wants this thing to go at will. Austin Matthews shot. And then you got John Tavares, really good tipper in front of the net. And then William Nylander, who has had a really sick year. So, I mean, both these units on the power play are absolutely loaded. Now we got to move on to a very big part of this series, and that's going to be the goaltending battle here. I mean, on one side, we got multiple Vezina winner and Conn Smythe winner, Andrei Vasilevsky. This guy, all world, in my mind, still the best goaltender in the league. The thing about Vasi is it just seems like he chooses when he wants to play sometimes. Some days he takes games off. Other days he decides, I'm the best goalie in the world. Watch. And then he absolutely does it like he did last year against Toronto in Game 7 when he allowed 1 goal and made 40 saves. It was unreal. I just remember this guy being lights out and just being unbeatable, and Toronto was just scratching their head wondering how this was possible for this man to be this good. And then on the other side, you got Ilya Samsonov. I mean, his Russian counterpart here, way less experience, but himself in his own right had a very, very strong season.
Yeah, this is gonna be a very interesting goalie battle. On the face value, it looks like a big gap between these two goalies. But to be honest, when I watched Vasi play lately, he hasn't looked good. I know it's the regular season, but the thing is that this Toronto team is much better, in my opinion, than the Toronto team last year. They're hitting their prime, so it's going to be tough for even Vasi to turn it up the notch this year. The team is a lot older for for Tampa Bay, so it's going to be interesting. Samsonov is hungry. You can tell he's hungry. He's pissed off with his time in Capitals, in the Washington Capitals, your team. So he wants to show that the world that he can be a number one goaltender. So I think he's going to prove it.
Well, you know what that leads me into? This leads me into a segue. For our X Factors, we're going to each give you one player from each team that we think could be the X Factor in their team winning this series. And I'm going to start off for Toronto. And shocker, my guy is going to be Ilya Samsonov. I think for Toronto to truly win this series and finally get out of the first round, it's going to come down to Ilya Samsonov's play. This guy has been so good this year. He has been a top 10 goaltender if you break down the numbers. He has lived up to what the expectation was originally when he was in Washington. And he's doing it for such a cheap contract that allowed Toronto to go out and spend a lot more money on other places. And I really do think he's going to actually live up to the hype and be really good in dual Vasi.
My X Factor was originally actually Ryan O'Reilly, and granted, he's a great addition to the team, but actually I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go to Austin Matthews in this one. The reason why I have to pick him is because this player could have easily led the team in top 10 in scoring this year. He could have easily. No questions asked. But he decided not to. He decided to work on his defensive side of his game, and it really showed this year. And he's doing whatever it takes to have success in the playoffs. So that's why I want to see this guy light up in the playoffs. He is a terrific player. I know he could have led the team top 10 score, no question.
Moving on to Tampa. I got a weird one here, but I really think this is going to be an X factor if this team wants to move on. And that's going to be Nick Perbix, the defenseman for Tampa. I mean, I'd say the average viewer probably has never heard of this guy, but this guy is going to be relied upon, whether it's the fourth defenseman or fifth defenseman, to provide some good solid minutes and be really good defensively, because he's going against a very, very high octane offense in the Toronto Maple Leafs who have multiple lines that can score. And honestly, we mentioned it earlier, this team lost one of their MVPs over the last 3 cup runs in Ryan McDonough. That is an absolutely tremendously big loss that people don't think about. And I think if Perbix is going to have to really step up his game and be that type of player, not maybe McDonough, because we know McDonough is like an all-star caliber defenseman, but he's going to have to really raise his game if Tampa wants to win.
My X factor for the Tampa Bay Lightning is none other than Alex Killorn. I mean, this guy had a terrible playoffs last year, and he wasn't really a non-factor.
It was bad.
He was terrible. So in order for this team to go anywhere, this guy needs to start scoring some goals on the power play. When he's on the power play, he better put in some chip in some way or another, because they don't have Andre Palat this year. So so he has to step up in that side of things.
Yeah, another big loss, Palat there.
Yeah.
Jeez. That leaves one more thing. We each have to make our final prediction on how we think this series is going to go. And I'm going to be honest, and I know this is going to get a lot of laughs because, I mean, it's been however many millions of years without a win. But I think the Toronto Maple Leafs will win this series against Tampa in 6 games.
I'm going to pick Leafs in 6. And I feel like with Colorado beating the Tampa Bay last year, it shows that this team can be beat. And I feel like Toronto's going to watch the tape of how Colorado beat them with the speed, and they're going to use that to their advantage. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I honestly, last year, I thought Toronto outplayed Tampa, to be straight up. They lost because Vasi was superhuman, which he tends to do in the playoffs. But I think this is Toronto's year to finally get out of the first round.
Yep.
But guys, until next time, take care, and we'll see you in our next playoff preview.
Take care, guys. Bye.